right, so here we are for an update with my friend and brother in the faith, Kelly Hale. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, Shade. How are you doing today, my man?
Excellent, excellent. And so I'm going to get right into it because I think there's quite a few people that would be interested in hearing an update on how your case is going. But just to cover this, Kelly Hale is the owner of JAKK Tuesdays in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And he was and is one of the wonderful people in Canada that were and are willing to stand up against these nefarious, inappropriate mandates. And he was loud about it. He made it very, very clear. If you don't mind me saying this, Kelly, you made it very clear that you weren't going to obey these mandates because it's all illegal as far as you're concerned, particularly when it comes to people's fundamental human rights. Would you mind just, again, a lot of people I'm sure know this, but it doesn't hurt in case someone watches this video to kind of update them on your position when it came to all those mandates.
Well, yeah, I mean, from day one, I never subscribed to any of the mandates. I never contractually obligated with public health on these mandates because they were voluntary and there is no enforcement for them. And walking with the Lord as I am too, knowing that they are illegal, and I'd be asking people questions about their personal medical information and such. In good faith, I just couldn't subscribe to any of that. So from day one, I've been very vocal about it. As most people know who have seen what's going on with my case, the sign that I put up on outside my restaurant, say no to vax passports, all welcome at JAKK's, which still is on that sign as we speak tonight, even though my restaurant is closed and I'm locked out of it. But yeah, for those reasons, mainly my walk with the Lord, just in good faith and good conscience, I couldn't subscribe to any of this because they are illegal and they are not just mandates at all. So I was not going to buy into it at all and never did.
And so if you don't mind me saying, what I'm hearing in all of that is you based things on your faith as well as your own understanding of the federal statutes, the laws of the land, and dare I say this word right here, integrity. Wow. Oftentimes we don't see people with integrity. So I'm going to suggest strongly here that you're not only acting in good faith, but you're also acting with integrity, because integrity means you do the right thing regardless of what it costs you. And this has been costing you quite a bit because they shut down your business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're talking about go ahead.
Well, the powers that be, public health, who basically somehow have decided that they were going to play God through this process. And that's basically what they're doing to everybody here. But, the last couple of years has been tough on all of us small business owners, Shade. I'm not going to lie. It's tough to see that the restaurants and small businesses that are still open that have these restrictions put on them once again. And many of them aren't going to make it through. Quite honestly, if I was still open through this lockdown, I don't know if I'd make it this time. That's how touch and go everything was getting with a lot of the small businesses in our country.
Right. So you're sharing some empathy there. That's fantastic. Now, in your case, when they, and we'll say the earthly powers, but I'm going to just go ahead and say these fake factions, because somewhere along the way, public health, I think most of us would think that, well, public health is, they want to make sure that things are clean, for example, or there's plenty of ample soap in the bathrooms, and make sure your hot water tank is working so people can wash their hands, and your dishwasher has hot water, for cleansing and things of this nature. At no point, I don't think any average citizen would think that a health unit could come in, and I'm going to make this very clear, shut down a business based on a communicable disease that did not exist in your business.
Yeah, or there may be a risk of. It's quite amazing what's happened for sure.
So bottom line is, I'm going to read this so that everybody understands what the health unit used to say, JAKK Tuesdays cannot operate. And here it is. It's section 22. I just did a video not too long ago. So if you guys want to check it out, I think it's called the HPPA horror. And here's how horrific this particular clause is. It says of the HPPA, I think that's Health Promotion and Protection Act.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not protecting anybody, because I'm going to make this very clear out the gate. There was not one case of the current disease in the staff or in the patrons or in your establishment whatsoever, not even one case. And here's how the clause of section 22, section 2 of section 22 reads. A medical health officer may make an order under this section, which is section 2 of 22, where he or she is of the opinion. Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. They have to have an opinion. Well, we got plenty of those.
And we know what opinions are like, don't we?
Indeed.
Everybody's got one.
Everybody's got one. You got that right. And as long as it's upon reasonable and probable grounds. Now, as much as that might sound really good, as soon as you put opinion, reasonable, probable, and then you follow it up with this, that a communicable disease exists or may exist. In other words, it doesn't have to exist, but it could. Well, quite frankly, it would be reasonable for someone to say there could be a communicable disease right now in my house right now. It's possible because, I went outside for a while and I was shoveling the snow, and then I walked in and no one checked my ouchie fauci status. I wasn't wearing a mask when I came in, and, who knows, I might have touched my rubber boots. So it's reasonable to think there could be maybe possibly a communicable disease. See? And they actually use this to shut your business down. Am I correct?
Yeah. And the irony in all that is they were coming at me in the order originally saying that there was an immediate risk because of the said disease in our community, so to speak. And the other thing too that amazed me is, this public health people, they're hired people. They're not even elected officials. Like where do that's what's blowing me away. Where do the people that aren't even in an elected position by the people get power to do what they're doing to me and any other business they've done it to already? But when we were in Superior Court on the 19th of November, when they gave me the injunction to go to court to try to shut me down, and they had been pushing the whole immediate risk thing all along. And in court on that day, the immediate risk changed to there may be a risk. They just started backtracking. They switched it right up, and they've been moving the goalposts and making their own rules as they go here. And it's crazy, really.
And I have the transcript on that. So thank you, by the way. So you have two witnesses. So not only did it happen, but the transcripts make it very, very clear that they started with, there's an immediate risk to, because, they admitted there wasn't on record. They admitted there wasn't one. So then they go, oh, hold on a second. Oh, okay. We're going to change that then to what? Well, it could have existed.
Twice, like on the 19th, and then again, the 12th to the 14th of January in my appeal hearing with the Health Services Board, Dr. Oglaza from Kingston Public Health, he testified twice that there was no outbreak at JAKK's. They never put out a bulletin in the community that there was an outbreak of any communicable disease at JAKK's. I asked him on the stand, I cross-examined him, was there anything saying that I had the disease, my staff, any patrons? Never, so where's it all coming from when the top doctor is saying, no, there was nothing? And the irony too is they gave me the order to close on November 3rd. And then it was the 10th when they came with the first court order to shut me down. And it wasn't until the 26th of November that they put out a bulletin about, spread of the disease, and there's a problem in our community.
Yeah.
Again, more backtracking.
Yes, absolutely. And you were mentioning there that you were cross-examining. And so we're also going to re-mention this for anyone who might be fresh to this video, that you were self-representing yourself. You did not invoke the charter for the exact same reason after you're done reading Section 22 of the HPPA, how widely scoped and it's based on opinion and you don't have to have any fact. Well, actually, the charter reads exactly the same way. And that's why you did not invoke the charter, and you're using case law, common law, and the Canadian Bill of Rights to defend yourself, correct?
All the way. That's right. Yeah. I mean, the Canadian Bill of Rights, I can't believe more people aren't getting behind this. I know we're making a voice. You're helping, Jane, Rebecca. There's so many people, Dave Freedom. There's so many people that are pushing the bill, and people are starting to understand the importance of it and how much protection it really gives us. And guess what the Bill of Rights doesn't have? It doesn't have a back door out for them to come in and take things away from us like the charter does.
And so just to clarify what Kelly is saying here, Section 1 of the charter reads like this, that the charter guarantees the rights and freedoms. And notice they dropped the word fundamental. They dropped that word, and they dropped the word human as well. So there's the Canadian Bill of Rights says fundamental and human rights, and fundamental means of central importance, and human rights, not just rights, human rights, right? So they dropped that in the charter. Of course, Mr. Trudeau Sr. was the one who was introducing this lovely, and who's going on right now with it, beating people up. And he pretty much went on record saying that Section 1 is a loophole so that he could do things like this. He pretty much went on record and said it. And it says the charter guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in it, and enjoyment of property is not in the charter. So you don't even have that right as far as the charter is concerned. And then plus the rights that are in there are subject to, once again, reasonable limits, as long as they can justify it, right? But it's all in their hands. So once again, you're saying, well, wait a minute here. Why would I invoke that piece of junk when basically out the gate, you're saying that you can do this to me if you so choose? That's what essentially the charter does.
Yeah. And it's more clear now than it ever was. And I always knew that the charter was not the document to protect us, how they've shown it that way. But now, with everything in play, and that Trudeau is the prime minister, this has been their goal the whole time. The last 40 years has been working up to this. I mean, that document in 1982 was made specifically for what's happening today, and nobody can convince me otherwise.
Absolutely. As Jane Scarf, our wonderful friend and sister, she said, it was a sleeper. They put the bomb underneath your car. They just didn't set it off. They waited the 40 years and then boom, now they're exploding this thing. And of course, they got their people out there still pushing this and trying to explain, including a co-author of this document, Mr. Peckford, and I'll be as kind as I can, but the fact that he has not admitted that this, after we've watched this debacle go on for almost 2 years now, he's still not admitting that Section 1 is a huge problem. So instead, he still continues to promote this as if it's a wonderful piece, when clearly this is the section they're using to beat the crumbs out of everybody with. So anybody that comes out continuing to defend this piece of legislation, as far as we're concerned, is either completely indoctrinated. Let me repeat that. Hold on. Edit. Thank you. Indoctrinated. There it is. Or controlled opposition. Those are our two options at this point after 2 years, correct?
Well, I can't think of any other way. I can't think of a third way to explain it or describe what's going on. You can't.
You can't.
If in good conscience, and there's already been many cases that have invoked the charter and they lost. I mean, the TTC had one. There was Saskatchewan or Manitoba. There was a case too. Yep. There are ones that I know of offhand. So knowing that it's not there. And here's the other thing: lawyers, I get the indoctrination, because lawyers, that's part of their training. They steer them to that. It's part of the whole con from the Crown down, that this is how it's going to be, and this is how you're supposed to react, and this is how you're supposed to, do your job for us, type thing. So that's why utmost importance for me, self-representing with the help of, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest paralegal in Canada, Jane Scarf. She's just incredible and a wonderful lady, I'll tell you. She doesn't hold back, and she's passionate about what she does. And I love her for what she's doing, not just for me, but for this country. She's really standing up big time, and I'm honored and blessed to have her on my side.
Yeah, and she's as far as I'm concerned, she's just such a powerhouse, and she's was in the following hearing that I was actually able to sit in on, and this is the one that I really want people to hear about, because when Jane, her turn, if you will, because in this case, in the following hearing there with the, you'd know the names better, is when
the Health Services Appeal Board.
There it is. And then Jane started explaining in your defense in this particular, to the appeal board, which I'm going to say out the gate, there seemed to be, quite frankly, maybe some people would say this is conjecture, but I think I have pretty good discernment, and their faces seemed kind of, solid and kind of firm, that, there wasn't much that she was going to be able to say to shake them out of their position. And then she started framing the picture for them that, we're not trying to overturn your provincial law. What we're saying is that as soon as you go to enforce the law, it becomes a federal matter, because all enforcement in Canada is a federal matter and therefore must come under the scrutiny of the criminal code. And
specifically section 25(1), my friend.
There it is, of the criminal code, right? Yeah. So now, because a lot of people say, well, you can't use the Canadian Bill of Rights because it's a federal statute. Well, here's the thing. You can use the Canadian Bill of Rights for the enforcement, maybe not to overturn the law, but you can use it for the enforcement of the law. So then as she's starting to frame this, I see the judges' faces, their countenance began to slightly change. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's when they started sipping their water a little bit more, and you could tell they knew it wasn't going a direction they were hoping it would go.
Yeah, they thought this was going to be open and shut, right? Yeah, thinking, well, they didn't even invoke the charter, these dum-dums, right? And then she's like, no, we didn't invoke the charter because we got something better for you, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is clear the Canadian Bill of Rights gives them no room to budge. And she made that clear too, that 1A, 1B has absolutely no exceptions. Right. Yeah. So,
but the best thing there, Shade, is that when she was painting that beautiful picture for us, the case law she brought in was from 1938. And guess Boom. What wasn't around in 1938? Charter of Rights and Freedoms or the Canadian Bill of Rights. So that's when they went, oh, snap. That case law basically said the province cannot fundamentally overturn, go against your rights and that we have as people. So that case law was pretty cut and dry, and that's why we are a common law country. That's why the case law prevails, and it's so important, And when you combine that with the Bill of Rights that we're using, it literally is a slam dunk, or as Jane says, they have a great big nothing burger.
They have a big nothing burger. And that's why, and for anybody that's out there that might be thinking, well, can't we use the case law with the charter? No. Mm-hmm. And we're going to briefly explain this to you. The reason why you can't is as soon as you invoke the charter, you're going to have one person, one man or woman judging your case, and they can bring in as much of their public opinion and their own personal bias. They don't have to look at any case law. Whereas if you don't invoke the charter, they don't have section 1 to get out. And now all of a sudden their personal opinion or public opinion means absolutely nothing. And it has to be according to the federal statutes that are already there and all the precedents that's been set up already from, for example, from 1938. And actually was set up even before. So to paint this picture, here's the bottom line. That 1938 case law was when their countenance really started to change. So first she says, hey, enforcement comes under federal scrutiny and comes into the criminal code because of section 25(1). And therefore there's all kinds of codes, things in the criminal code that you are violating with these passports and with this all, sticking your nose in everybody's business and all this kind of stuff, because now the enforcement, federal statutes, and all these laws that you are now breaking in the criminal code, right?
Mhm.
And then on top of it, she brings in this case law that not only supports it, but goes on to essentially say, and by the way, this is complete common sense here, that provincial bylaws and regulations cannot violate the laws of the land, right? And by the way, if a province can override federal statutes, then what's the point of the federal statutes, right?
Exactly. There's no need for them then, is there?
Yeah, well, it's silly. It's like, okay, we have a federal statute. You're not allowed to discriminate against people. And then in Ontario, you go, nah, we'll just ignore that. We don't care about that stuff. No. That's not how this works. The entire nation of Canada agrees, right, to Canadian Bill of Rights 1A, for example, right? You have the right to life, liberty, security of person, right? And security of person.
Enjoyment of property is huge. Enjoyment of property, because they've taken my property away illegally, shutting 100%. My business down.
And by the way, we want to say this, that's not just for businesses, right? It's for I don't care if you're renting a bachelor apartment, right? I don't care if you live in an RV, it doesn't matter. That's your property. You want that enjoyment. It's not even in the charter. Yeah, and even if you had it in the charter, they could limit it anyways, right? Yeah.
So basically that's a big part of my stance here, Shade, when I did this is I see what's at play here. And I think more Canadians are waking up to the tyranny and what's really going on here. And it's not about our health. It never has been. It's about control. And, if they're coming after a small business owner like me, who's run a business for 16 years and had a clean record with public health, never had a violation with the liquor control board, and then they're coming and doing that to me. When are they going to come and knock on your door and take your house away, Shade?
100%.
And the sad thing is, and I get human nature, but most people don't care until it concerns them or affects them. I thankfully, there was other things at play, like I said, with all these lockdowns and what's going to happen to my business if I'm locked down again. I'm not going to go away quietly. And I knew what was going on was wrong. And like I said, God compelled me to put that sign up in the first place. And my walk in the faith now, and I know I'm relatively new to this again because I'd went through a lot of things and fought a lot of demons for the last few years of my life. And when God asked me to do something now, I'm God-fearing, my friend. I don't say no.
That's it. And you're also making it very, very clear in this testimony. You're saying, look, I understand that it's, you kind of go, well, as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm just going to mind my own business. And it seems like a nice thing. And what you're saying to people is like, look, don't do that. Get in this because you don't want to be in a position where you think that it won't come to you, because it will eventually come to you in one way or another if you don't put a stop to this as a community. If we don't get together as Canadians and just agree that this is way offside, that they're just completely way off their rocker. And by the way, you mentioned about your record. 16 years of no issues. Well, I was there in the hearing listening in, and they actually tried to use your good record against you. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. This group of people that have decided they are just, essentially they're trying to declare themselves as sovereign lords of the country, even though no one's elected them. And most of us don't even know their names. And they've decided that, and here was their approach. I'm going to make it very clear. They basically said, you were complying with all our rules before, and now you're a bad person because you're not. See, they actually took you.
And guess what? The rules I was complying with before, I agreed with, and some were actual laws.
Yes.
And I actually obligated contractually, and I did those things.
Like, for example, they like to use, you check people's ID, right? This is like, that's because there's a law for the booze, but we've made the point, but a 16-year-old can still come into JAKK Tuesdays. They can order everything except for alcohol. And you agree with that as a human being, and also in your faith, right? You would agree that listen, I'm not going to give a 15-year-old alcohol, right? So again, you agree to that. We as a nation agree that that's an appropriate thing. It's been a law for a long time, but you can still let that 16 or 17-year-old in. They can order just pretty much everything else except for booze. But yet they'll try to make these analogies, and that has nothing to do with your medical privacy.
They did that at the AGCO hearing. And before I get into that, me not serving a minor and them still staying in my restaurant and having a bite to eat, that's not discrimination.
No.
Okay. So the lawyer for the AGCO says, so you ask people for ID if they look under 19, right? I said, well, of course. And then she says, well, why wouldn't you ask them for their vaccine passport? I'm like, no, that's personal medical information. It's not medical information when I'm asking for the driver's license to ID themselves or some type of ID. And like I said, that is a law that I've subscribed to and followed because I am a law-abiding citizen.
100%. And yet they are going to try to take those types of examples and say, and therefore, well, if that's the case, you can ask them to, expose all kinds of personal, the government says I got to ask you what's in your bank account today. And, well, you ask people for their ID. Why can't you ask them how much money they got? You ask them for their ID. Well, why can't you ask them if, they got, whatever, how often they go to the bathroom during the day. I don't know. It's like, that's such a ridiculous analogy. And yet these are the types of arguments that the prosecutors are trying to make to actually legitimize their nefarious behavior, rather than recognizing that what they are doing provincially goes completely against the federal statutes of this land of Canada. And we need to remind everybody of the Canadian Bill of Rights. We need to remind everybody that this is a common law country. It's not a charter country. And you want further proof of it, you have to invoke the charter. Yes. You don't have to invoke the Bill of Rights, correct? And you just cite it.
That's right. And the other thing that's really bothersome to me is the way the controlled opposition that's at play here is talking about, the communists have taken our country. They're painting a picture that Canada's already lost and defeated, and we have no choice but to cave into this. Well, our country's not gone. This is a great nation, and I'm a proud Canadian, and we don't have to take our country back because we haven't lost it. We just have to stand up to the tyranny and say no.
That's right.
But they're painting that picture, so everybody just thinks, oh, well, it's useless. What can we do now? And that's how they get in, and that's how they take it away. And they systematically strip things away over time, as you know. If you do it all at once, people are going to wake up a little quicker and say, what's going on here? But over 3 or 4 or 5 decades, you do a little bit at a time, and that's what's happening, obviously, and that's how they play the game.
And what we also want to make clear is that, and I'm going to say this directly, Kelly Hale is not being civilly disobedient. He's being obedient to the true laws of the land. Who's being truly disobedient is, quite frankly, the health people. They're the ones who are being disobedient. Anybody that's enforcing, quite frankly, or coercing or getting behind these illegal, nefarious, inappropriate regulations, you're the criminals. You're the ones who are doing things wrong. You're the one who is being disobedient, not Kelly Hale. Kelly Hale actually knows what the laws of the land are, the federal statutes, and he knows the case law, and he knows the common law. And he has people like Jane Scarf who has seeked that out, right? And that's why we say, no, we're not being civilly disobedient at all. We are being obedient to the true laws of the land. So anybody who's going around saying, oh, this is already, a country that's, whatever, the comments that the people make about it being a communist country already, that plays into their hand. So once again, maybe somebody's just losing their temper. Okay, maybe. Or on the other hand, maybe they're controlled opposition because they want you to believe you've already lost when you haven't. Right. So that's why at Stand for Thee and yourself, and we're saying, look, this is a common law country. You haven't lost. Just keep the charter where it belongs, buried under a bushel. Don't invoke it. Don't invoke it. And it's so funny to watch them too, right? When you don't invoke the charter, it's like, I don't know, like I don't even know what analogy. It's like taking drumsticks away from a drummer.
And
He just kind of
funny
goes,
too. In court, yeah, in court on the 12th.
like, what am I going to do? You took my drumsticks away. I don't know. I don't know what to do because, right? Because you took away that thing that they've been indoctrinated into using, and they have no clue what to do when you rip that stupid charter and you put it right back where it belongs and put it under a bushel. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah. So the 12th, when they called me to Superior Court on a couple hours notice, and then on the 19th, when I was talking about the Bill of Rights and not talking about the charter, and I forget exactly what the judge said to me, but I said, I'm allowed to cite the Bill of Rights whenever I want. I said, everyone here is bound by it. I mean, I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to invoke anything. I said, the Bill of Rights is something I can freely talk about. There's nothing saying that I can't. And then he knows that. So he's bumbling around at trying to figure out how to get out of it. But every time we brought up the Bill of Rights the last couple of months, not once have we been told, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't talk about that. You know, it's crazy. They know that it's real. And they know the effect that it has, and that's why they're a little nervous about things for sure.
And it's because we're foiling their plans, if you don't mind me saying so. And I don't say that in a boastful way. I want to make it very clear that during this hearing, and they are taking what the position that Jane Scarf has presented, and through you, they're taking this as a huge problem. And here's one of the things that I would suggest proved it. So while I was watching your hearing online as it was going, Jane starts painting the picture. And as that frame started coming together, and she brings in that 1938 case law that is an absolute slam dunk. It is very, very clear. It's prior to the Canadian Bill of Rights and the lousy, poopy charter. It's way before that. It's already been set in our nation. She's just framing that. And all of a sudden, someone starts screaming and yelling. One of the watchers that I'm going to say directly was a stand-in plant of controlled opposition. Because when those judges, when their faces started to change, they go, uh-oh, we got a problem here. In comes the stand-in, and he starts sending out all kinds of over-the-top, vile language, yet he was pretending to be a Kelly Hale supporter when ultimately, well, then why would you interrupt Kelly Hale's defense case? Why didn't you interrupt the prosecutor and swear at him? No. You waited till the defense was coming together really nicely, and then you slid in there. So we know, and then on top of it, Kelly, and I just want you to verify this, what they let him go on and on and on. Now, we know that they could have just muted him immediately. You know exactly who it is because it comes out right away, and you just boot him out. But that's not what they did, is it?
Oh, they gave him a solid minute of just ranting. And I mean, he was using some cuss words. I mean, he was dropping
really bad.
And it was bad. And for the chair of the meeting to just sit there and just look all dumbfounded and not do anything about it. And earlier in the day, they had everybody's mics muted. The day before, they muted Jane because they didn't like her going off the way she was going off, talking about what she was talking about. But yet this guy gets a full minute. And then instead of just getting rid of him, like you said, they say, oh, we're going to have to go to a phone call now. And for half an hour, they went and had a meeting trying to decide what they were going to do next. And we're wondering what's going on. How do we get back on this call and figure out what Jane can finish what she's talking about?
So basically, they interrupted your defense. They kicked this guy, interrupts your defense. They let him go on. And by the way, I don't mind saying this, they didn't look surprised at all. No. Their countenance had changed. But when this guy started swearing, they weren't shocked. I was shocked at the kind of words he was using. They were kind of just going, I'm like, oh, okay, this is going on for at least a minute, like you said. I might even suggest a little longer, but maybe the cuss words were so bad it felt like a really long time. And then all of a sudden, instead of them just muting him and kicking him off, they kicked everybody off. And then I couldn't get back on. So we went from about 90 to 100 people watching your case to, I was going to suggest around 30. So at least
it was 30. Yep.
Okay. So a good portion of people now couldn't get on. I couldn't see the rest of it. And I couldn't help but think to myself, okay, that was a plant. That was a setup. And they took like a half an hour to regroup. Right. So once again, conjecture on our part, we don't have a receipt, but this was all out of the ordinary on how things are handled. And we all know the basic technology on this one. So I think we can safely say, you know what, we got some circumstantial evidence here that what they did was they got together in a group and said, uh-oh, what are we going to do? They just presented an amazing defense. And now we got a problem on our hands. So how are we going to handle this? And that's how I kind of viewed that. And I have a feeling that you're on board with me for this one.
Oh, 100%. It's no different than if you're in an actual courtroom and somebody stands up and the judge decides he's in contempt of court. They don't kick the whole courtroom out. They take that one person out of the courtroom. So
right.
This is no different.
This would be
the fact that they didn't do it that they should have done. It's pretty alarming. That it's obvious what happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely. They have the technology. They know that, and they know that how the courtrooms are supposed to work. Someone gets up and does something horrible like that. Again, like you said, you don't kick out the entire courtroom. You just take the one person who's losing their minds and you say, that guy's got to go, right? So you can do that digitally, no problem. No, they didn't handle it like that. They let him rant and rant and rant, and then they kicked everybody out. And then it took at least a half an hour to regroup. And it was just absolutely obvious to me. And but what we can do is see the upside. Don't look at that as a downside. Look at it. That means they're nervous. That means it validates what Jane was presenting, because if it wasn't valid, they wouldn't have had that stand-in show up. They wouldn't have kicked everybody off. They did that because the case you're presenting is solid like a rock, and it is valid. And they're going to have to really, really, really do something. As far as I'm concerned, they'd have to be obvious now that they're cheating. See, with the charter, it's not as obvious because they do have section 1. They have their loophole. They can use it. No problem. Well, we got section 1. That's it. Reasonable limits. Done. Check. But when you don't give them the weapon that they designed for themselves to do this, now you just took away their cheap shot sword. That's why we are so adamant in telling everybody, do not invoke the charter. You are being foolish if you do. And quite frankly, our position, look, I'm not a lawyer. Kelly's not a lawyer. However, it is clear.
I'm learning a lot, though.
Indeed. And it is clear people have already lost with the charter. So if you're continuing to try to defend yourself with the very thing that the people who are perpetrating this have set up so that you can't defend yourself with it. It's basically, they gave you a fake gun with no bullets, right? And they said, okay, now try to shoot us. You can't shoot them. Why? Because you're using their weapon and it's theirs. It's for them. It's not for you. The charter wasn't designed for the Canadian citizens. Absolutely not. It wasn't. Section 1 proves it, right? So don't use it. But be very, very confident that the case law and the common law is there for you, as well as the Canadian Bill of Rights for the enforcement part of these laws. And we are really trying to get this message out to everyone and anyone who might have tickets, who might have fines, or that are in fear, that don't want to do something. Listen, guys, don't let them rob you of your life. You have a defense. Don't get sucked into the charter. It's Trudeau Sr.'s little present to Trudeau Jr. That's just the way it is. And don't invoke it. Use the Bill of Rights for the enforcement section and go fetch that case law and common law that would apply just about to anything, because essentially, best as I can tell, it's saying, look, provincial laws can't violate federal laws. It's really that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah, it is.
It's done. It's over. Finished. So they're going to have to deal with that. And they're not going to be able to unless they're just going to be, quite frankly, so grotesquely obvious now. They don't have a leg to stand on legally, and they know it.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying even a couple months ago when this process started for me. I knew it was all smoke and mirrors. I called their bluff. They're not good poker players, as they've been showing the past couple of weeks, especially. And, people forget too, is these things that are being put in front of us are mandates. And I was saying earlier, in this respect, a mandate is an offer to contract between two parties. Okay.
It's not a law.
That's right. So if I had contractually obligated when they said ask for the passports or, do these things, then I'm now in a contract with them. But I put that sign up and never contracted with them ever, because it's voluntary and there's no enforcement, which we proved, because otherwise in our hearing, the lawyer for public health would have rammed that down our throat and said, here's the enforcement right here. You guys are wrong. They still have not been able to show any enforcement in the ROA or 36420 OREG, right? So, like Jane said, nothing burger. It's obviously not there. So if the enforcement was there, they would have, like I said, they would have made sure we knew, and they would have proved us wrong. It's not there. So
It's not there.
I'm not. So public health received a complaint. They said September 15th, there was a conversation about, educating about what's going on. And because it was voluntary and I said I wasn't going to do it, they weren't going to follow up anymore on the complaint. It was done. And then all of a sudden they come back with all these, the orders and closing my business down. Well, they said originally they admitted it's voluntary, and I said no. So they don't have anything. There's no enforcement, and it's voluntary. So yeah,
in their attempt,
there's no way out of this now for them without egg on their face. That's just the bottom line, because they are very, very wrong what they've done.
Yes. And in their attempt to make an example out of you, might I suggest what's going to happen is you're going to make an example with God's blessing, with Jane Scarf's help, and with the support of the people that are behind you, right? You're going to make an example out of them, because what they are doing is wrong. Not only, and quite frankly, I don't need laws of the land to convince me of this, because people should have a right to make a living. They should have a right to open up their business. And if people are concerned, they don't have to come to your business. You know that as well as I do, right?
That's right.
Okay. And that's just plain as I can be. And so if you open and, let's say all of Kingston doesn't want to come because they're concerned with a disease or weather, or if there's a bad snowstorm, you should be in a bad snowstorm, right? For example, you can still open, right? Or at least you're supposed to be able to open. And then if people don't come, you're like, well, I just still want it to open. Who knows, right? But you might, on the other hand, say, look, it's a bad snowstorm. I'm not going to open. It's your call. A person should have a right to open up their business and then let the people decide whether or not they want to enter at their own risk. And that's what we support here in Canada. Instead, what they're doing is they're violating every single solitary right that I can see without exception, right? Your right to life. You don't think that includes making a living and opening up your business? How about the right to liberty? The freedom to be able to open your business when you want and close it when you want?
And might I say, God-given inalienable rights, my friend. I mean, we can't even give them away if we want. God gave us these rights. They're ours, and that's what I've been fighting for from day one, Shade, and the irony in this is the people that are against me and thinking that I'm doing wrong things, I'm fighting for their right to even be able to oppose me.
Yes.
If this goes the way they don't think it's going to go, if we don't stand up to this, they don't even get to have a voice anymore. And that's what I've been about: freedom of choice, freedom of expression. It's your choice whether or not you want to get as you say, the whammo tammo, or if you want to come to my restaurant or not. That shouldn't be any different now than it was 5 or 10 years ago, but they've flipped the script and they've changed that. And I'm standing by.
Trying to change that.
That's what they're doing, right? They're trying to change that. And when I say, welcome at JAKK's, I mean that. I'm never going to discriminate. I never have, on any basis, and definitely not going to discriminate based on vaxxer or not vaxxer, any of these things. You know what I mean? It's not happening.
Not happening. I love it. And in essence, also, by the way, they're violating your freedom of religion too, because again, within your religion, in your faith, you're saying, look, I can't do this in good conscience. I can't ask people what's in their medicine cabinet and stay in my faith. I would be violating my faith and the laws of the land to support your ridiculous, unprecedented mandates that I have not agreed to, not to mention the fact that they've been created, it appears to me, by a bunch of people who have never been elected and they're not lawmakers. Okay. So I'm going to really push people out there after you listen to this. Listen, folks, public health is a fake faction of government. That's what it's being used. It's not there to protect you. It is clear it's there. They're using it. Now, could have been to protect people, but that's not what they're doing now. They're using it to harm people. And what Kelly and I are trying to really explain to people, don't wait till it comes to your door. Start speaking against it now. Expose the evil of Section 22 and Section 2 of 22 in the HPPA. Expose the evil of the Charter and tell people not to invoke it, then and guide them to common law, case law, and the Canadian Bill of Rights. Be bold, speak it out. We're talking to the pulpits out there, all the spiritual leaders, and quite frankly, anybody who believes in any level of morality, of freedom, and can look even just in the last, 50, 60, 70 years of Canada. If you've enjoyed Canada up until, let's say, March of 2020, if you've enjoyed Canada, it's because you've had those civil liberties. Now they are under attack, but they have not been removed from you. They're removed from you once you give them up. And Kelly Hale's not given them up. And we are going to suggest strongly to you that you should not give it up. And you do, on top of it, you're in a blessed country under the supremacy of God. You have the Canadian Bill of Rights, and you have common law and case law that you can use to legally protect you. Okay, so.
And I'm never going to give those, I'm never going to stop fighting for that. And you know what? It is our duty to disobey dishonest orders, and according to the Lord, that doesn't make us bad. We're expected to do that if it's something that's not right. And with my walk with God, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And there's no other way to explain it other than that, so.
That's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. And that's the truth. And I think that this is a great way to end this interview. I appreciate not only what you're doing here today by kind of voicing what's going on and letting people know, but on behalf of all the Canadian citizens that are really, really maybe feeling like they're hopeless, you're giving them hope because you are self-representing. And then, of course, you have some assistance from a paralegal. And you, sir, along with that assistance and, of course, with God's blessing, you are sticking your neck out for every Canadian citizen so that they might have an opportunity to give freedom of choice to their children. Because I think we both know that if you lose those freedoms, if you lose bodily autonomy, if you lose that as an adult, you can't give that to your children because you won't have them. You can't give an inheritance to your children that you don't have. And so you are fighting for every Canadian citizen that's walking in this earth right now as we speak, as well as their children and their grandchildren. And so if you don't mind me doing this, I'd like to thank you for that. And
I want to interrupt your story, but I also want to say, God bless the truckers of our country and what they're doing right now, because that is the difference right there. And I've always said we have the power in numbers. And I'll tell you right now, this convoy, it's gaining steam, man. It's like a snowball going down a hill, and it's getting bigger by the minute. And God bless those truckers for standing up to. This is what Canada needed, what's going on right now. And God's timing, he's never early, he's never late, my friend. And the fact that this is happening right now, it's pretty awesome. So God bless all those truckers. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that it always seems to me too, that God always uses, right, the very, like the average bar, pub and grub guy, the paralegal, not the hot shot star lawyer, right? A paralegal, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know, some, long-haired guy like me, and then takes truckers, right? Average guys that just want to make a living. They travel around. I say that they're rolling around now in their chariots of iron,
Mhm.
right? And they're really making a loud noise, and it's just amazing how God uses them to really give hope to people, and then we should all be getting behind all that. So thank you for bringing that up, because we really do need that. And just we just want to encourage everyone to be bold. You be bold and be loud. Don't be quiet about it. Even if, well, it's not affecting you directly, it will, and it's probably affecting you indirectly. So be loud, be bold. This is about your life. It's already cost a lot of people the last almost 2 years. No one's gonna convince me that the last almost 2 years has not been pretty much the worst 2 years of most people's lives in this country. So let's remember we are in a blessed nation. Let's remember who blessed this nation. The great God Almighty blessed this nation. Let's return to remember that. And let's be reminded that he blessed us with the Canadian Bill of Rights, and he blessed us with case law and common law. And we need to be bold. So let's ask God to encourage us, keep us strong. Let's be reminded also that there's 25 Holy Writ scriptures in the Peace Tower of the Parliament Hill. Okay. So we are indeed a nation that is founded on Christian principles, the Holy Bible, what some would call the Old Testament and the New Testament combined, right? And those principles matter. They matter if you want to live in a country that is not going to be full of tyranny and, well, quite frankly, neck-choking laws. And I think the last 2 years has proven that that our civil liberties are given to us by God. And as you said, they're unalienable, and in no shape, way, or form should we do anything other than to remind those folks who are elected leaders and those folks who are not elected leaders. Example, health unit people. Okay. Remind them that this country was founded on those principles, and we're going to stand by them. So be encouraged.
That's right. And I just want to quickly thank too anybody out there who supported me through my business when I was open, and those who are supporting me now. I really love you all. Thank you. It's amazing the support that I've been receiving from everybody. It's overwhelming, actually. So thank you, and keep fighting, everybody, because we're going to win this, because we know who wins in the end, and God wins. So keep the fight going, everybody.
It's awesome. And by the way, so if Kelly, if this is okay, you're going to send me that link. I'm just going to try to put it in the description box, a link that if you want to, maybe help out Kelly, if you're so moved to help him out, there's going to be a link that you can maybe, maybe send a little fundage his way to kind of help him right now, because obviously his business is not operating. I've had a person or two have asked me before, and I've sent them the link, and this time I'm going to put the link in the description box. And, so if you are able to do so, then great. And we're going to make that available too, with great appreciation in advance. I want to thank my brother Dominic for handling the Zoom call here. And I want to thank you for your time, Kelly.
No, God bless you, Shade. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad we had this conversation, my friend. Thank you.
Awesome, brother. All right. God bless you. And we'll get further updates when we get to the next hearing. Awesome, man.
All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers. God bless you.